Welcome to our PMP training session, and today there'll be a focus on project risk management. We are covering chapter 11 in the PMBok, 5th edition, on this area. There are 6 processes that we'll be going through as shown in this diagram is taken from page 61 in the PMBok, where we covered from plan risk management, go right down to control risk. If the question is asked, risk, is this something good or is it something bad? What would you say? Some people would say risk is something bad. When you say that this person is a risk or that item is a risk, most times we mean something bad, something negative. However, in a project management context, risk has a neutral meaning. It could refer to a threat, whereby it's something bad, or it can refer to an opportunity, which refers to something good. So risk is a neutral word. However, it is used primarily within our local context as meaning a threat. So what is risk? A risk can be an event such as a fire or a condition like the unavailability of a part or the inadequate resources, and that's a condition. A risk can be positive. We call positive risk opportunities, and we refer to negative risk as threats. So one definition is where a risk is an uncertain event or condition. So it's an event or condition. The idea that makes it a risk is the uncertainty, and uncertainty means that you're not sure, so it's futuristic. This definition is very comprehensive, where a risk is an uncertain event or condition if it occurs. So the if it occurs is the operative phrase in there, because we're not sure if it will occur. Has an effect on at least one project objective. So that if it is that you are doing work, let's say you are doing some woodwork, building some cupboards inside a house, and there's nothing to do with outside or wet weather. There's nothing to do outside of the house. There's wet weather can't affect you, and you identify rain as a risk. Rain might be a risk to an activity that is outside the house, but rain is not a risk to someone working inside, probably. So in that case, it doesn't affect any project objective, so it's not a risk. It's important to know that risk, you must show where it can affect at least one project objective. I'll look at almost, it may appear a little comical at that stick man here on an edge, and I'll show in the next slide an example and analogy of dealing with threats or with negative risk. So the most effective way to deal with any threat or negative risk is to avoid it. So if Stickman, let's say his objective was to stand on the edge of a cliff, but it's slippery, it's windy, then the best thing to do is to avoid us being there. So avoidance is most effective. So if you know there's a particular resource and there's a programmer who does excellent work, but the person might be highly unreliable. When you ask for the work, there's delays. When the work gets done, it gets done well, but there are always delays. So it's best you avoid that programmer, hire somebody else. It might be a particular product. It might be a paint quality, a paint that you're looking to purchase, and there's a particular brand that does not go well on walls at all. So you avoid it. So avoidance is one of the most effective ways of handling risk. Another is mitigate. Now, most people think mitigation is the only risk strategy. Mitigation is one of 7 risk strategies. Right? To mitigate means you want to minimize the effect. You cannot stop it, but you can minimize the effect. Such as for power outage, you may have a standby generator, right? Standby power. So you cannot stop electrical power from going. TNTech do what they have to do. However, if there's a power outage, your standby generator can kick in 2 minutes after or even 5 minutes after. So was there a power outage? Yes. Was there an impact? Yes, but the impact was what? Minimized, because you had something there to mitigate. So to mitigate means you're going to minimize the effect of such. You can also transfer. So to transfer, you can pay someone else to accept the risk, like an insurance company, or a warranty is an example. You buy a laptop and there's a 3-year warranty on the laptop. What does that mean? Well, in that 3-year period, should anything go wrong with the laptop, the manufacturer, albeit if there's nothing of negligence, the manufacturer will stand the cost for repair and ensure the laptop is working. So you would have what? Transfer that risk. So transfer is another. And then the final is que sera, sera. I mean, the aspect of acceptance. You can't do nothing about it. Right? So you are aware. Now, accept doesn't mean ignorance. Accept means I am aware that there is a risk. However, I have decided to do nothing about it. If it materialized, well, we have to simply accept the consequences. All right? So as shared before, the objective of project risk management is twofold. One, increase the probability and impact of positive events, i.e. opportunities. And secondly, to decrease the probability and impact of negative events, i.e. threats. So that's the intent. Overall risk management has these two simple objectives. So the various processes include plan risk management. That is how you're going to conduct the risk management, how you will control it, how you would respond, how you would do your analysis. Identify what the risks are, right? List them off. After you would have listed all your risks and identify them, you may not have the resource to action all of the risks, to put things in place to treat with all of the risks. So what you do, you prioritize. We call this perform qualitative risk analysis. Quantitative risk analysis is where you would do further analysis to identify what are the best risk response options. Plan risk response has to do, and still under planning, what action. So now you have identified your risk, you have prioritized them and indicate which one you are going to actually action or plan for, and then you say, okay, what will be our response? So plan risk response put actions in place in order to treat with the various risks, and that is opportunities and threats. And then we have control. So with control, we would implement risk response plans, we would review them, we would monitor if there are new risks on the horizon, if we have to adjust our strategies, etc. So our first process is plan risk management. Plan risk management, we define how to conduct the risk, and what we want to ensure is that the risk plan is commensurate with the importance of the project. So if it is the project, it can be loss of life or limb, then you want to know that the effort in planning is adequate. If you're building a dog kennel, there may hardly be loss to life and limb. You will take some precaution in what you're actually doing, but that is different from if you're constructing a house. Right? So here you want to ensure that the time and effort you put into planning is commensurate with the importance of the project. So we are stating here that in plan risk management, that we want to ensure that the degree, type, and visibility of risks are commensurate, as shared before, and that we provide sufficient resources when doing so. In other words, you don't want to underplay a situation. Right? And again, I just use the example of if there is significant investment in that particular project, you want to ensure that there's adequate time would have been spent in doing your risk planning. So in your output, it will include for your risk management plan the approach you plan to use, the various categories. Some risk, for example, might be IT related risk. Some risk might be HR related. Some risk could be, different categories: procurement, supplier, hardware. What is good about using categories is for each category you can ask yourself, what are the possible risks on these categories? So you can think of IT, HR, procurement, and you can go on for a few areas and ask under these categories, what can be the possible risk? So the plan will also have a definition of probability and impact, your tolerance, how you plan to do your tracking, how you're going to do your reporting. So all these hows will be part of your risk management plan. All right, let's do this quiz. So project risk management includes all the processes concerned with conducting risk management planning, identification, analysis, response planning, and controlling risk on a project. In this context, which of the following statements about risk is not accurate? So risk is an uncertain event or condition. We say that, hey, that's accurate. Risks have to be identified and properly managed. Yes. Risk management should be done throughout the project. That's very important. Risk has a negative impact on project objective. Not necessarily. It can also have a positive impact, which we refer to as opportunities, and therefore we would say the answer is D. So what is the first process? All right, so if you said plan risk management, you're right. So let's move on now onto the next process. How do you call a project manager who do not do risk management? Some people might call them careless. You call them they shouldn't be a project manager. They're doing disservice. So I call that person God. Why do I say God? Well, God is the only person that I know. When he plans, it occurs. His purpose always prevails. When we plan, we don't guarantee the future. If you don't do risk management, what you are saying, therefore, is that you're guaranteeing it would not rain in the next 4 days. You're guaranteeing everybody will come to work on time. You're guaranteeing. And you're saying that you guarantee all those things. So if you're not God, then it is necessary to do some measure of risk management, risk identification, right, accordingly. So identify risks. Identify risks, we determine which risk may affect the project and document their characteristics. Observe, sometimes when we say identify risk, we mainly think about threats, right? It doesn't have to be threats only, but I'm just saying that what we have to give consideration to. Techniques we could use is information gathering techniques, right? You can call, you can do brainstorming, you can have a focus group, you can, different things you can do to help other people. It is not a effective thing to do risk identification by yourself as a project manager. Involve persons who are also or will be part of it, or who may have worked on something very much similar. All right, so you may have the element of expert judgment coming into play there also. So how do you do risk management? We talk about lessons learned. I mentioned about information gathering techniques. Delphi technique is where you would ask experts and they would respond anonymously, so no one knows what the other response would have been. You would interview persons one-on-one. You can do a Ishikawa diagram with cause identification, and I mentioned before also expert judgment and SWOT analysis. So all these are just different techniques and approaches that you can use to identify these risks. The primary output from identify risk is a risk register. The risk register would list the risk, the categories. Is it IT? Is it what is the trigger? The trigger is that which you would look at or observe to indicate that this risk has now been actioned or should be actioned. If we're dealing with threats, then the risk should always be negatively phrased. I wouldn't put as a risk statement rain. That's not a risk statement. I would put that wet weather can affect the delay or can delay the start of the project. When you read a threat statement, it's supposed to be negatively phrased. All right, so let's just give you an example. A risk is futuristic. However, an issue is current state. So if you're saying that there might be industrial action and TCL at the Trinidad Cement Limited, and if that occurs, then there might be a shortage of cement, and that shortage could affect our construction project. That's a risk. What if there's the risk materialized and there is a shortage, right? And there was industrial action and shortage actually has occurred, and worse yet, there wasn't really much of a plan. So an issue, whereas a risk is future, an issue is present. Yeah. So risk management and issues management supposed to be in tandem. It is always better to have a very long risk register and a short issues log. A long issues log means to say there are a lot of things currently affecting your project. A long risk log or risk register simply means there are things that can affect, but you're not sure if they are actually affected. All right. So, and you will see the various elements of the issues log. What is the issue, the impact, plan, what are we tend to do about it, who owns it, and then you have your date for your tracking. So the first was plan, risk management. What is the second process? So if you indicate in the second process identify risk, you are right. So having identified risk, our next process is to prioritize. You could identify 50, even 150 different risks. You will not have the time, manpower, money, necessary resources, and effort to put a plan for all of them. So it's important we have to prioritize. So we prioritize our risk using probably a probability impact analysis or matrix or some other assessment approach that would now identify and would sort our risk, let's say in descending order. This is a very important, right? So the prioritization of it, you'll have at the end high order risk that you will action or plan for, and the other risk, I call them low order, or we according to PMI, we put them on a watch list. So this watch list we put them on means to say you're keeping your eyes on them. So perform qualitative risk analysis is help to focus on high order priority risk. It's not that we're not going to focus on the others. The others that go on this watch list can actually come to the front burner at any time, right? So we can use subjective analysis, high, low, medium, or we can use numerical values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What 1 means very high, 2 means sort of, 5 means is a low ranking risk. You could decide how you want to do your categorization and scoring of it. So in the analysis, a relative probability of likelihood of occurrence. So it's important. We can talk about wet weather. The probability of occurrence is for tomorrow might be 60%. Why? Well, according to the Met Office, XYZ. So it's important you also be able to substantiate. When you give a number or you score in your risk, it's to substantiate. Don't just give a wild number, right? What's the impact on the project? Well, the impact could be of a 3. So what does a 3 mean? A 3 means it's a severe impact. It can cause at least a 50% delay, and you can go on giving other explanation. So let's do another quiz. As part of the risk management process, you have just created an overall risk ranking of the project and a list of prioritized and identified risks which need additional analysis and determined trends in risk analysis results. What should you do next? So when you read through there, what stands out is that you have created a list, so right, and said that and have an overall risk ranking, fine, and a list of prioritized risk. Now here we have to be careful, but it said that which need additional analysis. So someone may be tempted to say, well, make a list of potential risk response. So a person may want to choose D because it says in the question you did your ranking, but the question also says that there's need for further analysis. So if there's need for further analysis, then you have to analyze. You are still in qualitative risk analysis, right? So you cannot yet go on to D. Okay, all right. So the answer here is A. How do I know I have all my risk? You never know. You never know. So you just do all the best you can with the techniques of expert judgment, different type of engagement of interviews, focus groups, right? As much as you can, but you never know you have all your risk. All right, so I didn't cover it up this time, but our next in line is the perform quantitative risk analysis. So in this perform quantitative risk analysis, here we use numerical type analysis techniques on the options and probabilities that may actually occur to further analyze risk occurrences. Of the 47 processes in the PMBok, this is the only process, i.e. perform quantitative risk analysis, that PMI has indicated is optional. Right? It's the only process that I've read that is deemed to be optional. So some of the techniques include interviewing, probability distribution, different kind of modeling, EMV, expected monetary value, and we will look at an example in the next slide. This example is taken from the text. Let's say you want to decide, am I going to build or upgrade, right, for a particular construction. So if I have to build, I have to put up a capital investment of 120 million. If I'm going to upgrade, the capital investment is 50 million. If I build, there's a 60% probability. Let's say you do your market survey, right? 60% probability of there's a strong demand, and if there's a strong demand, I'll get about, I estimate, 200 million in revenue. If there is a 40%, there could be a weak demand, and if there is a weak demand, there'll be a $90 million revenue. In the upgrade option, 60% probability of a strong demand, that will give me less revenue, 120 million, and 40% for a weak demand, that will yield a 60 million revenue. So if we do some calculations, we will observe that we say 200 million revenue minus 120 investment give me 80 million. And in the weak demand, I get a minus 30 million net. So I say the EMV, the estimated monetary value for building a new plant, is 36 million, i.e. the probability of a strong demand by the net plus the probability of a weak demand by its net. And I do something very much similar for upgrade plant. The larger of the two values will be the decision point. So in this example, it is more profitable if we upgrade plant. And so this is an example of a decision tree using an expected monetary value analysis. So we have done plan, identify, perform qualitative, and the last would have been perform quantitative risk analysis. Great. So let's look at plan, risk, response, because if you can identify all you want. If you don't put a response in place, it means you say you just did an identification. You can identify what threats, you can identify what opportunities, you can prioritize. But if there's no plan, and more so action in those plans, then you would not yield the results, and you may end up like burnt man across here. So for plan, risk, response, we do something to eliminate the threats before they occur, or to make sure the opportunities happen. We will be looking to what options can we really explore with regarding for opportunities to materialize or for the threats to be reduced. I'll make mention, in fact, as it is here, I could talk about it immediately. For the remaining residual threat. Now, residual risk is the risk that remains even though you put a plan in place. So let's say that we're talking about electrical power. So we have a standby generator, we're doing some work, and current goes, so there's no electricity. So we pull the generator, we have pulley generator. Now when we pull the generator, the generator runs for only 15 minutes. Why? It was inadequate fuel. So there is still the risk of there being outage, right? So residual risk is the risk that remains. There's still one, even though we put a plan in place, the plan may not have been totally effective. So in dealing with residual risk, you can put a contingency plan. A contingency plan deals with residual risk. So you may say, well, if the generator doesn't kick in long enough, this is what we will do. So you put another plan in place, right? So contingency deals with that. A fallback plan is to treat with when a contingency plan is not effective. So plan risk responses. So we'll look at the various risk responses to threats and opportunities. And again, I said, all the identification, all the prioritization leads to this point. What are we going to do? So for negative risk, we could accept, mitigate, transfer, avoid, as said before. And for positive risk, we can exploit, share, enhance, or accept. And in the next two slides, we will just get some more details in these two areas. So we spoke about avoidance when we showed the stickman example. It means to eliminate the threat entirely. Don't buy that paint. Don't hire that individual. Don't, just avoid it. Transfer is to deflect, where such as warranty, insurance. When you take out insurance on your car, it's actually the risk you're transferring it to the insurance company, bears in part some of the risk. Mitigate, put plan in place that would reduce the impact, both reduce the probability and impact. So when you drive at 80 kilometers per hour, you reduce the probability of accident, or if there is one, you reduce the impact of it because you're driving within a speed limit and having your seat belt, and you also have probably a seat bag, an airbag, sorry. Accept, I'm not ignorant, I'm aware that there's a risk, but there's no plan in place. Opportunities, exploit, do all what you can to help that risk materialize. That would mean to exploit, put all what is required, right? Share. So it might be an opportunity that you need to buy some US, you get 10,000, you want to get that's about 5,000 US, someone wants also 5,000, the bank say no, we only given 10,000 upward. You come with the person, you say okay, we'll come together and we'll go to the bank, we'll take out 10,000 and we'll share it. And what you're doing here, you share, there's an opportunity, but you on your own can't capitalize on it, so therefore you share ownership of such. And enhances a degree of exploit, but it is at a low-key level. You don't put much effort into it, but you do something, and then accept means you do nothing. So if the opportunity, I'm aware there's an opportunity. Hey, I'm aware I might get this contract. I'm aware of this may happen. I'm aware we may save time, save money. But here what? If it happens, it happens. I'm not going to put no effort into it. If it happens, it happens. All right, so we did plan, identify risk, perform qualitative risk analysis, perform quantitative risk analysis, and the last was plan risk response, right? So we move on now to the last process, which is control risk. So control risk is where you monitor, you track, you keep in mind all these risk factors. Things might change. You may have a high order risk, might go to the watch list. You have a low order risk, might turn high priority. These different things could occur, right? No risk might stay the same. So risk could increase, it could decrease, you could have more threats, you have less opportunities. You're monitoring and making necessary adjustments accordingly. So control risk involves executing the risk management process, right? You have workarounds. Workarounds are unplanned. I will have a comprehensive definition, which is the second to last slide I'll come to shortly. Main outputs of risk monitoring and control might be requested changes, because you may say, hey, these guys are not putting on the PPE. We have the increase in risk to person. So you may want to do a change to probably the frequency of doing a toolbox session every morning, doing a risk assessment. Outcomes of risk assessments, right? And risk audits and reviews, making recommendation and changes, updates to the register. More risk could be added, less risk could be there, and stuff like that. So this is a comprehensive list of some of the definitions. So we talk about residual risks, the risks that are expected to remain after planned responses have been taken. Simple analogy. You observe there could be rain, you walk with your umbrella, and you open your umbrella, it starts to rain. But guess what? You're still getting wet. So there's a probability, even though you have an umbrella, with some strong winds and side swiping winds, you still get wet. That's residual risk. There's a risk that remain, even though I have an umbrella, I can still get wet. Yeah. So that we talk about residual risk, the risk that remains. Now that's different from a secondary risk. A secondary risk arises as a result of implementing a risk response. So let's say you open your umbrella, and because you have an umbrella, you stuck someone in their head. Yeah, and the person got a small cut. So if you had no umbrella, the person wouldn't have gotten probably stuck in their head with your umbrella. So secondary risk means that because of your risk response, it brings to being a new risk. Let's say a standby generator. The standby generator, it uses fuel, right? Flammable fuel. And someone smoke a cigarette and they carelessly flick something and the thing blow up. So secondary risk means what? Is a new risk that comes on the scene because of a risk response you have put in place. Right? Then we have workaround. A workaround means there was no plan, but you had to respond. So someone falling on your job, get an asthmatic attack, you didn't leave the person there. There was no plan for this. It was just out of the blue, right? But you have to respond. So workaround, unplanned response. Contingency plan is the response you will do to residual risk. And fallback plan is when your contingency plan is not effective enough, you will then have a response for your contingency plan. So the list of risk management processes we went through: plan risk management, how you would do your risk identification, qualitative risk analysis, ensure that your risk response is commensurate with the importance of the project, identify your risk, form a shopping list, create a risk register, perform qualitative risk analysis, that is, do your prioritization, perform quantitative risk analysis, which might be optional, right? You might do such as an EMV. Plan risk response. After all your analysis, which risk are you going to plan for, and what would your response be? Would it be to accept, avoid, mitigate, transfer, enhance, share? What would your response be? And you give some details to that. And then you have control risk, ensuring your eyes are always on your risk register, your risk plan, because things can change. This comes to the end.